Okay. So good evening all. As in last week we were not able to meet as I was out. And next 2 weeks in this month I'm again out. So the next time then we will meet in March on March 6th. So this is our 31st BC open discussion. I just had one question pending this week, I guess, and it was one of the question I guess which was asked repeatedly about building a aging report, generic aging report, like where you can define how many months you want, and then how many groups of dates you want while you're building an aging record report, and then that was possible in Business Central, uh, not in CAL. So we'll see that, and then I just want to hear everybody's opinion about one of the things that is recently being talked about, and how everybody thinks that we handle that situation. So let's go through the normals first, which is, if you haven't registered and you're watching this recording, then on the blog, this is the URL where you can go and register for the upcoming meeting. So this link should get updated tonight, and then that will be for 6th March. So the first link is for registration. For the next one, if you had questions that you want to discuss here, then you can add in this Microsoft uh, form. And then if you want to be a presenter someday, you can just key in just basic detail here, and then you know, I'll send out an email and we'll talk about it, and then we can schedule it someday. If you are here in the meeting and you don't want to go through this hassle of registering every week, just drop your name and email address in the chat, and I'll make sure that you get invited every time without getting registered every time. So keep that in mind. Okay, so the first thing that I want to talk about, and this is, I guess, only for people who are coming from NAV from the past, is about breaking changes, because with the next release, there are some breaking changes, and I guess this would be the first time where Microsoft will be doing some breaking changes. And this is a little bit different than how it used to happen in past in the NAV world. And this all discussion started from this Yammer post from Freddie, where he said that, are your apps ready for Business Central 2021 Wave 1? So I just want to, as in, I have my views, but I just wanted to know, do you know about it? What do you think about it? And how should we as developers should actually plan for breaking changes and impact of those breaking changes into our pertinent extension or app source extensions? Feel free, if whatever your views are, and then I'll surely share my views. So anyone, any thoughts on this? Okay, anybody know about this? What is the breaking change? Okay, so then let's understand, otherwise if nobody understands it. So in the past, what used to happen is, in the NAV world, Microsoft will release a version, let's say in 3 years or 5 years, whatever the timeline was, and the changes that are new in the product will be done in that version, and we were never informed about it beforehand that these changes are coming into product, and you need to prepare for your customization update if required. So with the Business Central 15 introduction, Microsoft decided to kind of pre-inform partners, developers, and ISVs before they make a destructive change. Now, what's a destructive change is where Microsoft drops some tables, some functions, or some fields, or even some event subscribers. So the way Microsoft does it now is, and let's see that in an example, I guess. Let me create a new file. .al, and let me see, is it connected? Download symbol. Oh, this is not connected. So let me connect this to my PC 174. And let me know if the font is smaller. I can increase the font for sure. Okay. So let's say if I create a code unit, 50,000, let it be my code unit. That's okay. And at this point, if I try to create a variable of my temp blob, which used to be a table in the past, I'll do something like this. When I do something like this, as of today, you get a warning here, which says that the table temp blob, and let me zoom it in so that we all can see it. Table temp blob is marked for removal. Region is replaced by blob storage module tag 15.0. Now, what that means is in version uh, BC15, Microsoft marked this object to be removed, but they'll not remove it for next 1 year, which means next 3 releases. So because it was tagged as for marked for removal in 15, it was available till 17, 16 and 17. But in when the version 18 will be released, this table will not be part of the Microsoft objects. And if this table is used somewhere in your extension, either app source or pertinent extension, that extension will not be supported by 2020 Wave 1. Now, how Microsoft does that? Because as an app developer or an ISV developer, you might want to remove something from your extension. So if you go to this table, you'll see they use these three properties, which is obsolete state, obsolete region, why it was marked as obsolete, and when it was marked as obsolete. So like if you use, let's say sales price, which is again a table. Now you'll see another warning here that sales price is marked for removal. The reason is that it is replaced by new implementation of price calculation. But if you notice here, the tag is 16.0, which means that this table will be available, will remain available till BC 19, which is 2021 Wave 2, October release. In October release, this will not be there. So if this table is used in your extension, either on-prem or sorry, pertinent extension or app source extension, that need to be fixed before that date. And it also follows the same rule, which is replaced by new implementation of this, and the obsolete version is this. Now, I guess what I wanted to discuss and understand how others are handling it is if you see something like this while you are writing your extension, how you think you will plan to solve this? Will you wait till the day when it becomes obsolete and then follow the legacy approach that, okay, when it will break, we'll figure out how to do it? Or as soon as you see something being replaced by something else, you'll start rethinking about your extension and start doing those changes now, let's say, as of today, if I have a custom where I needed a sales price, what would you do? As in, will you fix that by using the new implementation of the sales price, or will you keep it till it becomes a problem in version 19?
Ideally, we should start thinking of new approach.
Right. Okay. Anybody else?
Yeah,
Uh,
I think I also agree with that because when the new version is released, your app will become uncompatible, and
Okay.
in any case, you will have to do that at some point in time.
That makes sense.
So, so it's
So
better be prepared.
uh, this is Steve. The
Eh,
one question I have about these things is, do we have to have two versions of the code? Like, if we're SaaS and let's say that customers are currently on 17.4 and
hmm.
the rollout of 17.5 is going to occur over 60 days, and the breaking change just hypothetically occurs over that, will the new implementation always be backward compatible, or will we sometimes have to straddle
Okay.
versions?
So the breaking changes will only implement in the major releases.
Okay,
It'll never be part of the minor hot fixes. That's,
got it.
that's kind of a written statement by Microsoft. Uh, now
But
the go
will
ahead.
we
Yeah.
ever have to have a situation where we, like, I don't know how AppSource works. So let's say we have the 17.0 version of our app, and in
Yeah.
18 they're going to deprecate a feature. Can we, does AppSource allow us to have two versions of our app available, one for the 17 customers, one for the 18 customers?
no, only one is allowed because
Right.
your app is going to be there on app source.
Okay. And so
And
if,
why you are thinking as in we'll need two apps? I'm just trying to understand
let's
that.
say that a customer is on 17.0, they have
Right.
not upgraded, but they want to try my app. They'll click install. But during the,
On-prem or SaaS?
no, I'm thinking SaaS.
So if they are on SaaS, they'll always be on the latest version, right? They
But
can't be on
there's the
60
30
days.
plus
Yeah. Right.
60-day rollout period, right?
Right.
So let's say that there is a 17 customer who wants to try the app, but then there's the 18 customer who just got upgraded, and they're like, oh,
Mm-hmm.
I want to try your app as well.
Right.
If I implement the new version for version 18, in most cases from what you've seen, are they typically backwards compatible? Like the with deprecation, right? I can write
Yes.
code without with that is perfectly backward compatible, it
Yes.
seems.
Yeah.
Um, with this case,
It will be. So the way Microsoft is doing it is anytime they kind of mark something obsolete, there
mhm,
always either will be a replacement. So like for
okay,
Temblob, like this is going away. Like Temblob will go away with the next release, right?
okay,
But then the Temblob has a
as
new
alternative.
module which is on as a code unit, you know.
Yeah.
So you can, instead
Okay,
of having this, you can have a code unit Temblob and then do all your code against it.
okay, got it. So
As
there's a
far as
replacement in the current version.
yes,
Okay, awesome.
yeah. As far as these features are like sales price or email module and all those, for that, if you haven't noticed, there is something called as feature management,
Yes.
right? And feature management handles these situations. So like what I'm talking about is the pricing one should be here, which is, let me see. I guess there is this,
I
yeah, new sales pricing experience.
got it.
Now, but this is one way street. If you enable this, then you can't roll it back. So then once your app is updated, you need to make sure that your customer first switch this for all users. And then because there is a data migration process, yeah, there's a data update process that runs in the
Yeah.
background.
And you have to be careful about recommending that because they might be using another app that is not yet.
That's what I was coming to.
Yeah.
So everybody said that, we should try switching these as soon as we find it, which makes complete sense if we are sitting on an island where our customer is only using our apps. But just take this example of this change in the email module, right? Which is a pretty big change. I cannot go and suggest my customer that start using the new one because I'm writing your code into the new style. What you'll have to do is you'll have to make sure that you create your Docker environment, you kind of replicate their production environment with having the same ISVs or apps that they have on app source, and then switch the email module to the new version and see what breaks. Because at that point, other things can break when you enable a feature in the feature management. So if I change this enhance email capabilities, that means the old email capabilities are gone. And then if there is an ISV app which is dependent on the old implementation, that will fail on that tenant. So like widths, the temp blobs, these are not bigger things, as in they should be done. I also agree as soon as we see them. All your apps should use the new replacement. But when it comes to features like this, where there can be other dependency, then you might want to check with the ISV and their app compatibility before customer actually switches it. So the one big thing that is going away is the temp blob in the next major release. And the other big thing that is going away is the how API references were called. So if you haven't noticed, I guess there were, let me see, I guess it was also on customer, I guess. I think so. There used to be a field called ID on field ID 8080 or something like that. Got that field name. Let me see, obsolete. Yes, this. And this field from all the base Microsoft table, wherever it was, will be removed. Because now Microsoft have the new ID field in every table. So if your customer have APIs which were kind of doing all the integration based on this field, they might have to switch those to use the system ID rather than using ID. So it's a good amount of change that that will impact this. And the way, as in, I guess I figured it out. If I have it somewhere, let me see, open my PowerShell. Okay, I kind of build a small PowerShell query to scan for anything which is with obsolete tag 15, so that I can see which all objects are getting impacted with this change. Okay, obsolete. Okay, so if I run this and I have the DVD in that path, it'll show me all the tables which have something which was tagged as BC15 being obsolete. And that means all these tables, if they are being referred in my extension, they might have some impact with this big change. So with this info at our hand, we still have, I guess, a month or so before the new version comes up. If you have access to the insider build, start running your pertinent extension with that to understand what is becoming a warning with the new release. Because sometimes they are very small and you can always do it in that gap of 30 days or so, but sometimes they can be big enough so that you have to plan it before it actually happens. So yeah, there is a lot that is going away, and majority of it that you see is just because of that ID field which is going away. But yes, there are good amount of changes that are being marked as obsolete with this version. So any questions on this before we move forward? And let me delete this.
Hey, Saurabh, Sachin here.
Hey Sachin.
Can you share the PowerShell command which you have just executed? It will be easy for
Sure,
us.
I'll just make it more generic. I still have static things. What I'm planning to do is use Waldo's script, which can download the artifact from the from the cloud directly,
Okay.
and then it's just finding that tag that you want. So once it's generalized, because I just made it today because I needed it for a project, but I'll
Mhm.
make it generic and I'll make it available somewhere on the blog otherwise.
Okay, by any chance, have you tried with the any localization? Is it gives you localization wise the artifacts, or it gives
Yes,
you?
as in Freddy's PowerShell command gives you any localized version which is available.
Okay,
So
fine.
you just need to change that URL at the top and it'll give you
Mhm.
that artifact.
Okay, thank you. Yeah.
Okay. Anyone else have anything or any thoughts to share on this?
You talked about API changes, so means these will ID related thing will be impacting API. That's what you meant, or is there anything else?
Yes, that's it. That's it. Because if you have written your code segments and maybe majority of it should be external, then in Business Central. But if you have code around that is kind of, because ID was considered as primary key, right? So all those references will break with the next release because that ID will go away.
And
Uh,
what is the replacement of this ID?
System ID, the
System ID.
new base Microsoft field on every table.
Right. Okay.
s- okay, Sachin here again.
Yeah.
So, so I can see there is a Freddy's block on the screen, and I have tried with my app ID, and it was giving me a normal execution expected result. So anything else needs to be verified mode of that,
I don't think so. As in,
because
that's what.
it doesn't give me an error. Uh,
Okay,
it
that
says
then sounds good. The only thing I would say is if you have access to the insider builds, run
yes,
through
I do
it.
have. Yep.
Yeah, then run through it with the daily build that comes up.
Yes, I
If
am
it
doing
breaks,
that.
you'll see that.
Just wanted to know, have you as you do the analysis very prior to everyone else. So just wanted to know that because it will save my time. Yeah.
Yeah, this one is not that big. As in, my biggest worry is the next one,
Okay.
where the pricing engine is changing. That surely impacts so many customers, and then the width will go away, I guess, in the next release. But yeah, the next one is a little bit big one where reports and every other object will become a problem with the statement.
Yes, width was actually the concern with the VS Code, and that's great. They removed that. So
Yeah,
yes, it was making very much. While doing the debugging, it was giving wrong numbers.
that makes sense.
Thank you.
Okay, not a problem. Anybody else have anything? Okay, so then we'll move ahead, and I guess I had only one question, which was super interesting, true. But before we go into that, I just wanted to introduce you to the list data type if you haven't read about it or haven't worked with it, because it's super cool. I, the next example that we'll see the use of this for building a report, aging report. And I always wanted to do that because I've heard it in the nav word also that we want it to be more flexible, but it was not possible back then.
Did we discuss this sometime maybe 2 3 weeks?
Maybe briefly, we just talked about it, and I was giving some references to it. But the biggest benefit that I see is that now it's as in even in Business Central, if you define arrays, they are static. You need to define a length and the how much it can consume or save beforehand at the definition time. Whereas list can be more generic. It's kind of, you can define it at the runtime how big you want it to be. And the cool part is, like arrays, you can also have list of majority of basic uh, data types. Like the article says that they don't support blob, which makes sense, but simple types are all available, like integer, booleans, date times and all. And the only difference here from the array is that the index starts with 1. You can't go to the 0. um, and the best part is that it's unbounded, so there is no width or number of dimension you need to specify while you are defining this variable. And I guess this is the second time where Shahid had this question about building a payment receivable report where they can be split it into periods. And last time when he asked it, he wanted it to be generic. And I guess that's the time when we briefly talked about the list one. But this is where I was spending some time, maybe a half an hour or so today, just to figure out how I can actually utilize the list variable or list data type to make a generic aging report where you can define how many uh, kind of arrays you want and how many months you want per array. So let's quickly see that. And where is that? Okay, here it is. So let me try to build a report. Names, let me think about a name so that we can give it to, let's say he's saying payment received, right? Let's call it as I'll not go much deep into this one, but let's see how we can use this. So let's create a report. Let's give it 50,000 and call it as payment received. Okay. And the valid name is payment received.al. Okay, this is users category. I'll put it on report and analysis. Then application area will be all. And then what else I need, which is I need the default layout to be RDLC. And my RDLC layout file is stored, let's say, somewhere in the root, and then inside root it's source and reports, and then let's say payment. Yeah, that's basic. We want it for customer, so let's create a data item for my customer. Okay. And then let's pick some basic columns there. Let's say number and column, let's say name. And then because I want to use the same caption, so I'll set include caption true. What this will do is whatever the table field caption was will be available uh, in the report builder to kind of set that up. Okay. Now we'll come to request page, but let's talk about what we need here. Maybe that is something that is interesting. So we need a start date where user can specify the date from where he want to start his calculation from, and then let's give him option to choose number of periods that he want in report. Also give him option of months per period, how many months he want in that array when it is displayed on the report. Now, because I'm trying to make my number of periods and months in per period as generic, I'll have to store my start date and my end date in a variable of type list. And then you define it as list, and then of is the keyword, and then what data type you want. So this makes a list for my start date, and this will make a list for end dates. Okay, so let's key in these three fields into my request page so that user can use them. And here we have the start date. Okay, and caption is yes, it needs a tooltip. That's why that is okay. And then the next one we had was number of periods. Okay, so let's do a periods. So the idea is that user can enter how many arrays he want in his report in the column level, and then how many months in that per group, so that they can define and analyze the data the way they want it. Okay. So that defines the request page. And then let's check that user entered these values or not. So for that, let's create a let's create a trigger. Is a report trigger, so that can be placed after request page. Somewhere here, trigger report. What we want to check is that start date is blank, or if number of periods is 0, or if that months in that period is equals to 0, then error. Okay, and then the first thing that I always do in my aging reports is I need to do the date calculation based on the start date and the number of periods and month per period, right? So once these values are available, then I'll do, let's say, a calculate date arrays, and that doesn't exist. So let's add as a, I'll add braces here so that it understands it's a function. Okay, so now this function is available. So I now need to do the date calculations that I need for my report. And for that, we'll have to kind of go through that's kind of the same pain as every time we have to go through. So let's do a repeat till the point our number of periods, which will decide how long we'll have to go, and then define a local variable to do a, let's say, counter. So till the point my loop count is greater than equal to number of periods, and then I'll increase my loop count inside this. Now I have a start date, and I need to kind of fill in my list based on that start date. And then I have how many months that user want in that. So what I'll have to do is, let's keep it simple, I guess. Let's create a variable local date of type date. This local date will be kind of calculated. For calculation, I need a date formula or date expression. Okay, so let's create a date formula, local date formula. But I'm getting this as months per period, so I'll have one or two or three. But my date formula kind of goes like this: 1M or 2M or 2 days or weeks, whatever you want. So I'll have to kind of build that value. So what I'll do is I'll do a date formula text of type text. And what I can do with this is I can create a date formula text, which will be something like lesson symbol, and then I'll format my whatever the month that user have keyed in. Okay, and then I'll add the closing brackets into it. So this will make that integer to a date formula text. And just to pass it back to my date formula, I can go back and evaluate this, which can evaluate anything to a variable. So I'll pass my local date formula and give it the date formula text. This will convert my text into the date formula.
Will that require M also? Or format
Oh
month
yeah,
per period plus M?
right. Thanks. I was running a little bit faster, I guess, on that one. Thank you. Now, once this is evaluated, the first date that I need to enter in my array is the start date. So to add something into the list, I can just choose the list name, which is this, and then do a add. And it's just that simple. You just need to add and then put in the supported value that is required as that the type of list that you have created. I kind of have to loop in through that loop and then kind of keep on increasing that date. So let's assign this local date because I don't want to change the start date to the start date. Okay. Now, once I have my here, I already keyed in the first date into it. Now what I'll do is I'll increase my local date to kind of based on this formula, local date formula. I can always do my date formula, and then the next parameter is the date, which is local date. This will execute, and let's say if user have entered 1 month, it will increase this date by 1 month. Once it is increased, I can eventually go ahead and set my end date. Let's first do start date. Yeah, start date, and then again add time local date. We'll keep on adding that new dates that's being created here in this loop and then doing that. But my end date will always be calculated based on whatever my start date minus 1D, more or less, at the end of the month. What I can do for that is I can do a add, and you can always write a formula inside it if you want, which is in this case is minus 1 day from my start date. Okay. What is the error here? The calculate should only use the date formula variation, which is what it is here. Okay. So this will key in the first date, this will key in the end of that first period, then this will key in the start, then come back here at end. But the last end date will not be keyed in because the last execution will be this. So at the end of this, I'll go ahead and add one more here with my cal date and my local date formula, local date. So whatever the last date is, that will kind of be that date. So once this is done, I have my dates in place. I should be using them into my actual report now.
Will it require -1 also? The last one?
No, because at this point the local date will be maxed out, right? So when this will end, this will be the maxed out,
Okay.
and then the local date formula will just calculate that and add it. I guess so. I'm always confused at the end, but let's see how that goes. Otherwise, we'll come back and fix it. That becomes a problem. Okay, so let's see. Okay, so now the interesting part is how we kind of put this into our data set before we start creating our report. If we come up, we have already defined this. Sorry, this is a request page. This data item customer, and inside this, just to make it simple, what I'm doing is I'm adding one more data item of our favorite table called integer. Uh, integer. And then inside this data item, I'll just set the data item table view, which is I just want it not to bug me, as it's always tough to type in. Sorting based on number. Okay. Let's say order. Okay. It should be equals to yes. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to add those fields here which I need there, which is I'll add a column, and where I want to get the number that is in the line, let's say column array, and then this is passing the value number. Okay. The next value that I need is my start date column. So what I'll do is I'll say, but at this point it will be running for all the integers, so I'll have to kind of limit this. So let's first do that. I'll add my trigger on pre data item. Okay, and I'll set my number to run from 1 till my, what was that variable? Number of periods. Yes, I'll keep it running from 1 till whatever the number of period that user is running for, so that I can use this number as a counter to fetch the values that I have stored in. And then let's set these values, which is second one that we need is our start date column, and that should be from my period start date. And here I am doing a get. Now when we do a get on the list, you need to pass the index. So that's why I have kind of limited this to run to a particular range, so that I can pass here number. So if it is the first record in the integer table, which is kind of mapping to my first array index, it'll get that number and it'll pass it to the report. In the same way, I would like to have my end date column with my period end date with a number. So this should give me the kind of the rough structure, and then we'll talk about the value in a while. But let's check this as we saw, I still have a little bit doubt on this code, but let's see that. So I'll build this report so that I can get the RDL file. Okay, I have it now, and I can open it externally, and this open in my second window. Let me drag it there. Okay. Oh, this doesn't like me where it went. Okay, this is odd. Now how I control that? Okay, let me close it down so that I can okay, try to open it again. Open externally. Okay. Okay, so let's keep it small. Okay, here it is. Now, because we don't have a fixed set of columns, typically we normally, when we create report, we use tables. But when you don't have a fixed set of column, what you actually need to do is insert a matrix. Now, matrix is kind of two-way grouping. So if you see, the only difference here you will see is that there is a row group and there is also a column group. So what I'm going to set is the basic, which is I need to set it to the data set from where the data is coming from. And then let's say here, the customer number here. And then I'll set this group to be number, which is already done. And then in the column, I actually need my column array, which is mapped to my integer table number field. Where is that? Yeah, column array. So this will create that many columns based on my column grouping. So I can just set it to column array. Now here, what I actually want is my combination of my start date and my end date. So I can go here and I can say that this is my start date, and then just to kind of give it a little bit feelings like filter, I can put it the end date. So what will get printed is the start date dot dot end date to kind of get a reference of it. And let's first check this before we talk about this data column, because that'll be super simple if this structure gets set into the environment. The only thing that if you're building something like this need to remember is that this column will expand and it might go out of your report page width. So these are kind of hard to be printed, but they are good if you want to see some info in this way. Okay, so let's save this. Go save, and let's publish this just to see basic structure, what it comes out to be. Like this. Okay. Okay. So we've already added that report, and that report is called payment receipt. And I don't know why it soon became a little bit slower. Okay, but that's okay. Payment received. Start date, let's say I say January 1st, and then I choose, let's say 5 groups, and then I want 2 months into it. So it should show me 1 till 1 3 into one group, which is from January till 2 months, right? I guess till February in one, and then it should create 5 arrays similar to that. So when we ran this, let me zoom it in so that we can see that what actually happened. So it created an array for 1/1/21 till 28th of February. Then from March and April are in this, and then so now, okay, so now this looks okay. The dates are getting set currently, and I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 arrays. So now the only thing that we are worried about is what number will be kind of keyed in here at this point. So let's quickly create that formula into that code so that we can, and I should have it somewhere. So let me pick that up to save some time. And you can key in the formula based on your requirement. But what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to fetch the, and here, I'm trying to fetch the, from customer ledger entry, the amount column. So what I've done is on after get record of that integer data item, there's a local variable called customer ledger entry, and I don't have this variable, so let me get this created. What this is doing is it's setting the filter for the customer for which it is running right now. And then here what it does, it just looks for payment type of entries in that customer ledger entry. And then it sets a filter based on my start date, that array that I have, and then the end date that I have. So it let me kind of run the code between that range, and once it finds it, it's just add that in amount LCY into that total column, total amount, which is then make available on the report. So let's get this column also added so that we can use it. And this is my amount that I want to print. So let's do this payment value. And because the amounts in NAV or Business Central are considered as negative, so I'm just changing the sign of it so that it can be shown as positive into my report. And that's it. Now I have this payment value available. I just need to build it once more so that the data set is updated. And then we'll just add this column into our report design. So what I'll have to do is I'll have to set this column with my payment value, and just to make sure that the formatting is correct, whenever you add a decimal or a integer field, you get this format automatically built in, and it formats it based on whatever the formatting of that field is defined in the code or in the table. So it'll show me that. And here it's looking a little bit bad, so I guess there is a way to kind of add a empty line into the report in the middle. Let me see, I saw that, I guess. Line break in RDLC report, I think I've seen it.
I guess it is VBCRLF if you tried.
Oh, okay, I always use this, I guess, but let's see if this doesn't work. We'll surely try that. So if I change this dot dot to this, create a new line, hope so. If it doesn't, we'll see that. Okay, let's save it, and this time we should see some data, but there is an error. Where is the error? Okay, F5. Okay, it's going. Okay, and it went to my other browser, so let me refresh this here. Okay, so let's first check what kind of entries our customers have so that we can see some values into the report. So if I go into my ledger entries from here and then filter it out, let's remove the customer. I just want to see what kind of values are there, and add a filter of my document type. They should never be open, of payment. Okay, So let me short it here by date. It starts from 2020 of January, and it goes till, okay, I should have done it here, 4/12/2021. So it's more than a year entry. So if I use a filter of January 2020, that should do the work. So let's try that. Payment received. Okay. I'll start it from 2020, it said. So I'll say 1/1/2020. And then I need, let's say, 5 periods again. On every one, I need 3 months this time. So that means 15 months. That will roll over for a year. Okay. So let's see, and then we'll check the data also. Okay. Now it's showing some numbers. So that seems a good sign. It says that for customer 1000, if you filter out between 1/1/2020 and 3/31/2020, you will see a total amount dollar as 46,020. So let's quickly run through this also on a separate tab if possible. Okay, BC 174. Okay, and I'll just detach this tab so that we can see both the screens at the same time. So let's look for customers, and then let's go into the ledger entries. Okay, so let's apply the filter for my payments that I've received, and then apply the date filter, which is for, I have coded it for posting date. You can change it as you want, 20 till 3/31/20. Okay. So here what we have, let's just to tally this value, I'll kind of move it towards right. And we are talking about amount dollars. So let me open my Excel to do this maths easily. Okay. And here it is. And come on. Okay. So the amount plus amount dollars is totally equal to 46020.21, which is matching here. Okay. So the formula was correct, I guess. But yeah, using this list now, I can extend it to number of columns that I want. I can extend it to whatever the formula that you want to apply in for these calculation. But the only thing, as I said, that you might have problems while you're printing this report, because if you say 15 columns, then based on the size of this column, this will extend a little bit far and will not be able to print this. But the only way I was able to kind of generalize this is based on the list variable that we created for this. So I guess Shahid is not here today. Yeah, Shahid is not here, but yeah, this is what I tried today based on his request. And I guess this is what his request was, and hope that helps him. Anything else on this one? Any questions, any thoughts that I can change on this?
I think it's incredible, super cool. I think it's something that uh, nearly all the customers, at least in the Dynamics GP world, it's the #1 report that is modified to change the number of buckets and how customers want their data presented. So very, very valuable demo.
Yeah, it was hard in NAV also because we used to have arrays, and when I define an area, I actually have to define a length,
A
and that,
fixed length array.
yes, right,
Yeah.
And
and
that
that,
too, within half an hour time, I think.
right.
Yeah. It's amazing. Watching this is amazing, let me tell you.
Yeah.
Because it solves so many problems. As in, I have seen customer asking for it for a longer time, and as in when Sahid requested it twice, I thought, okay, I haven't used list ever, but this seems that this will solve that problem. So yeah, it was fun even doing this.
Saurabh, I have a question other than this.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
you, once you are done with this, can we take?
Anybody else have anything else? Otherwise, we can move ahead on this.
Yes, I have one question.
Go ahead. Oh, other than this,
Yes, other than this.
okay. So yeah, I guess we'll then go into order. Yes, sir. Tell me, Bansal, sir.
My question is it a known kind of, or is it a feature that when you publish a extension through VS Code, the
Mm-hmm.
dependent extensions get unpublished?
Dependent extension get yes, and it when you publish something, then dependent get unpublished.
Yeah, I'm not saying uninstalled, rather unpublished.
Yes, because they need to be kind of rebuilt based on the schema changes that you might have done as a parent extension. Okay,
Okay.
so whenever we even upgrade our Microsoft apps,
Hmm.
we have to unpublish all ours because our apps need to be kind of recompiled with the changes in the parent app.
But is that through VS Code only? I think if we go
So
by Business
when you
Central,
publish it, what happens is it actually unpublishes the old one when you publish it from VS Code and then publishes your new one. Okay.
right?
When you do it from PowerShell, it pops up a warning that there is a dependency. Do you want to uninstall it? VS
Yeah,
Code kind of compresses it and says by default yes, which makes complete sense.
yeah. So in that case, uh, I think the route is that we publish, sync, and upgrade. Right. In that case, the dependent apps doesn't get unpublished; they are still there. We need to just install those.
Right.
That's the correct understanding.
Yeah, and as in the way Microsoft suggested, is there is a command called repair nav app, which then compiles your app, the dependent app, based on the new schema that is came for the parent app.
What was the command?
Repair nav
Repair.
app. Yes. So the
So
repair
you,
nav app, the whole idea is to kind of compile the new dependent app uh, with the baseline app with the dependent app.
what happens in case we don't use repair? Will there be any issue? Like if we do publish, sync, and upgrade, and then go to Business Central in extension management and install those dependent apps. So will that be
Yeah,
sufficient
that's
enough?
not a problem because if there is a problem, that will give you during the installation time, because that's what it does. It checks it, right?
Okay.
But what repair does, it just recompiles your app with the current new, as in this example it says base app, but
Right.
whatever that app is dependent to, it checks for that. But it's not mandatory, more or less. You can go whatever you are saying with that'll work, but it just follows that to kind of compile it with the new assemblies that may have changed in your app,
Okay.
right?
Thank you.
Okay. And I guess Sachin, you had some question.
Yes, right now I'm working on the unit testing part, and for which I'm looking out for a tool or any kind of VS Code extension, which will give me an clarity about what is my code coverage is all about against my app. So, any idea on this?
Um, as in what you want to check,
Right now,
how
I
much
have
code coverage is done?
yes code coverage in the context of the unit testing part. That means how many code coverage is there for my current procedures. What do you have? Let's take an example. I have an app wherein I have 100 procedures, functions.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And looking at the procedures, I will be writing the unit testing against this. Correct?
Right.
So out of 100, how many are covered? Like 50, 100, or 25? So is any tool available for this? So how you think of this? Because .NET gives this particular feasibility, having this code coverage altogether. So I'm looking out for this.
This
So
is
if,
Steve. This was
Yeah.
just mentioned on Twitter, and I'm going to paste a tweet in the comment.
Okay.
James Pearson says that looks like he has a blog post on using AL Test Runner to measure code coverage.
Oh,
I don't know how
good.
good this feature is, but I've just pasted that tweet in the.
I'll just open it, share it here on the
Okay.
screen, I guess. Yeah. And that makes sense because I was also going to say that there should be something on automated test that covers that. But measuring code coverage using AL test runner. Okay, that's super cool. Okay. P4 0.AL test runner add some capabilities. Okay, so that's recently added. Okay, that's
Yes.
super good.
thank you, Steve, for sharing this. I
No
will
problem.
definitely go ahead and check out what is there.
And
And if I come up with ideas, I will share here also.
yeah, I think this was a common request of for people who are submitting to app source because
Yes.
of
So
the.
they,
I don't know if it's
yeah.
still a requirement that they used to have a code coverage requirement.
Yes,
Mhm.
they used to have that, right? That's cool to know. Thanks, Steve. Yeah. Thanks, Sachin, for the question. I guess we
Yeah,
learned something
thank
new.
you.
Okay, nice. Sounds good. Anything else, anybody? Okay, as I said in the beginning, most of the people were not here at then. I'll not be available for next 2 weeks, but I'll set up next call on 6th March now.
So, Saurabh, you said that you'll be considering all the emails which are there in the chat window. So I
Right.
shared my email ID.
Yeah,
You can
yeah. I'll
directly
add you
send
to
out
the
my
list.
invitation to this.
No worries. Okay, so if there is nothing, then enjoy your Valentine Day tomorrow.
Oh,
Okay. Okay.
Thanks again,
Have a good
Saurabh.
day. Good night.
Okay,
Fantastic
thank
session.
you.
Thank
yeah.
you.
Good night, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye bye.
Yeah,
Bye.
okay, good.
Bye.
Okay.